We covered testosterone, we covered growth hormone, we covered water and Gatorade, okay? Do you guys see, and I felt like there was kind of like a little bit of a moment on Monday, or maybe it was just me having the moment, hoping that there was a moment of this on how we think our way through. To me, training adaptations and then things like this is how we use critical thinking. And this is some ways how you can demonstrate, do you really know and understand all of the physiology and the things that are going on underneath everything, right? So you're like, okay, would water plausibly have any chance, right, to make performance go up? And you're like, okay, well, you got to think it through. You're like, all right, well, if I drink water, where does it go, right? And is there anything about where it goes that might contribute to strength or VO2 max or metabolism or something like that, right? And so I felt like on Monday, it's like, okay, well, I drink the water and it goes and it ends up in the blood as plasma. Ooh, okay. All right, well, if I had more plasma or I maintained my plasma, could that be good? And they're like, all right, well, then maybe, because then that keeps blood volume up. It lets me sweat and cool off. Blood volume is up, venous return stays up, preload stays up, stroke volume stays up, right? All of these things that we've spent the entire semester sort of slowly working our way through all come and fit together when we talk about this. Okay? That's why I think this stuff is so cool. And this is one of the things, I wish we'd had a little bit more time, but I always run long on the semester that we could just spend some time working on doing this, because this is the thing that when you guys leave, right? The next time you see a TikTok video with somebody saying some dumb shit, right? I am hopeful that what you guys can do is this. Be like, okay, well, they said that. What does that do? Where does that work? Does that even make any sense? This, and you can think for yourself and figure it out and not just have to rely on, all right, well, this person who seems very ripped and like they exercise a bunch on TikTok said that they, eat Twinkies all day and this kind of a thing. Okay. That's the point of all of this. It's one thing to know and memorize. These are the things that contribute to cardiac output. These are the things that contribute to VO2 max. This is the signaling pathway from the brain to my muscles via the nervous system. But it's another to be able to take those things and see it in actual practice. If you want to be a doctor, this is how you diagnose diseases. You want to be a physical therapist, somebody comes in and like, my shoulder doesn't work. What now? You're gonna be like, I don't know. Let's start working through what we know and putting things together. And that's part of the point. And I wish in some ways that we had a little bit more time to practice some of these things, because you guys don't get enough opportunities to do all of that. But we're going to work on changing that, but it's going to have no effect on y'all in our curriculum. In a couple of years, this will be better, but we're still kind of working our way through. Okay. All right. So rather than put the things up, let's do the next one. Oh, look, I couldn't get Dr. Pepper because somebody had taken all the zero sugar Dr. Pepper out of the machine out there. And then I almost stuck my credit card into the bill, the part that takes up like $1, and it tried to pull my, anyway, I'm not having a good day. But I ended up with a Coke Zero Sugar because that was all there was, and I'm very unhappy. But what about Coke or Mountain Dew or a regular Dr. Pepper or a Diet Coke or anything else? What about this? Let me go to the picture and see how many of you guys, how many of my groups, do you think that could be an ergogenic aid? Okay. It seemed like it was it was a sweep. Almost everybody said Mountain Dew, which is what I wrote, would be an ergogenic aid. So walk me through the why. Y'all are right. 100% right. This can be an ergogenic aid, but why?
So all those things can help lead to immediate source of like taking exercise for it.
Mostly water, right? Okay, not so much in this one, but in a regular one, right? There's sugar, there's carbs, Some of them are probably a little bit more concentrated than, say, Gatorade, and there's caffeine. You all think caffeine works? Yeah, of course caffeine works, okay? So now the problem is, right, that here versus here, if you were exercising and I said you gotta pick one while you're doing a race to drink, you wanna drink a Coke, or you wanna drink Gatorade, or you wanna drink water? Okay? You had to rank them 1 to 3. Is Coke or Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew ever going to be not 3? Is it going to be everybody's last choice? Why? Here, chug the rest of this.
Added sugars.
Added sugars? The sugars are good. Actually, for exercise, the sugar's good. Carbonation. So when they do these things, the reason that, right, when they originally made Powerade, they had a carbonated version. This, of course, came out before y'all were all born. Way to go, me. I was in high school. They had a Powerade. It was carbonated. Okay, Stacy and I were here, but that was it, right? The rest of y'all were, you know, a twinkle in someone's, I don't know, whatever. Okay. Things are getting away from it. All right. How much caffeine's in a Coke? 86? Not 86. 40? Cokes, I used to have this all memorized because we had to account for this. Coke, I think, is about 34 or 35 milligrams per 12 ounces. Okay. Mountain Dew is the highest. Mountain Dew has the highest caffeine concentration of any soft drink. Okay. It is the legal highest, and it's like 47, I think, milligrams per 12 ounces. An 8-ounce Red Bull has how much caffeine? Do you guys know?
150.
I think it's 80. There's a concentration because it's 8 ounce. Okay. Let's look. Libby, how much caffeine's in your Celsius?
270.
270?
Yes.
Okay. Good Lord. Larry, what's in your whatever that is?
It's 200.
Ghost has 200. Anybody else got a different one? Any other kind of energy drink? Pardon? Rain
Yeah.
has 300. I don't know what this rain is, but it's another one. Okay. All right. Red Bull's about 80. Energy drinks. So, okay. Energy drinks are a separate FDA classification than a soft drink. Okay. They're regulated differently, although both of them are practically not regulated. Okay. To be a soft drink, you have to have lower caffeine. Is the 30 milligrams of caffeine that is in that Coke, okay, gonna have much of an effect on you guys during exercise? The answer is probably not. The 270 in Libby's Celsius, definitely yes. Look at your pre-workout, okay? Most of them are gonna run between about 150 to 250 milligrams, which is, for most of you guys, depending upon your weight, we have to dose caffeine based upon weight. You need between 2 and 3 milligrams of caffeine per kilogram of body weight, okay, for it to have a noticeable ergogenic effect, okay? I was part of a study when I was a grad student. We gave people 8 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So for some people, we were talking like 800 milligrams of caffeine. Okay. So it's like, you know, it's like 6 espresso shots. Okay. That's so much that you get real jittery. Okay. On the other end of those. And if you're a high anxiety person like me, you're screwed. Anyway, so what's in a Coke? Probably not enough for the caffeine to have a measurable effect. Before there was Gatorade, right? They would take soft drinks and they would open them and leave them out and let them get flat. And then they would have people that they would drink flat soft drinks because the carbonation makes it very difficult to kind of consume it really, really quickly. So you would get the benefits. I think I had told you guys, I was a subject with the lab when I was at Georgia. There was a Powerade that had caffeine in it. It never made it to market. Never made it to market. Gatorade used to have some Propel, their water, They would call it like Rise or something that had a little bit of caffeine in it and, not a lot. But the Powerade had a bunch. It was like almost energy drink level. It was nice. It was nice. I will tell you all, you can buy anhydrous caffeine, right? On Amazon. It's just powdered caffeine. You can buy one of those little food balances that will weigh stuff out to like the milligram. You got to be really careful, but you can just put it there, mix it up in your Powerade. Very nice. Very nice. Or you just buy a no-dose pill, right? You can just buy no-dose. You got to be 18 at Walmart to buy the no-dose. They're going to check your ID. So they're supposed to, at the very least. Okay. Yes.
So with all of these like consumable
Yes.
ergogenic aids,
Uh-huh.
why do they work if you have to digest them? I would think that you would pull blood away from the muscles and put it towards the digestive tract.
It's a great question. So, caffeine works, takes it approximately 45 minutes to an hour for the caffeine to reach peak blood concentrations after you ingest it. So when we do lab studies on caffeine, you take the caffeine and then you wait. We wait an hour and then we start exercise. We want to catch you kind of on that downstream. So taking caffeine during a race, unless the race is really long, right? It's not of much use. Take it beforehand. So you've digested it, right? And then now the other ways. The way that we're doing the other stuff for having the carbs and all of this, you can shunt a little bit of blood to the intestine to be able to absorb the water and the sugar. Those things it's easier for us to get that out, right, than it is, say, to break down protein and some of this other kind of stuff in that particular. But that's a very good point. It's a very good point. Okay. Most of the stuff, at least the caffeine, you got to take it before, right? So coffee. Coffee, definitely, right? Absolutely. 100%. Okay. Whatever's bothering you, coffee makes it better. How do you know caffeine works? How do you know? Oh, no, I was going to say, so I had and I'm losing. Matt, Jordan, you guys know? Do they drug test y'all? Do you know what's on the ban list, one of the ban lists? Caffeine. Urine, they test for caffeine. NCAA and WADA, caffeine is banned, but they do a urine test. So you got to have a bunch. It's like 12 something per milliliter in your urine. Like it's a super high concentration, and urine levels depend upon a whole bunch of other kind of stuff. But it works because it's banned in high enough concentration, right? They don't ban water because, well, it doesn't work that well, but the caffeine really will work in those ways. Okay. All right. There we go. Let's see what's next. Creatine. Show of hands. Creatine, yay or nay? Now remember, it's creatine today. Wait an hour, does it work? Not creatine for 6 months, right? And then something. Okay. So I would argue that creatine is kind of like testosterone in that way. It's effective and it absolutely works, but it's not truly an acute ergogenic aid where like one dose matters. Okay. You don't have to resistance train with it, I see something, right? But you can take the creatine for like 3 weeks and load and then go do some sprints and it would probably be helpful. Okay. More creatine phosphate, more high energy, immediately available energy is there, right? Can work. Okay. Not so much that creatine's not banned by WADA or the NCAA or anybody else on those kinds of things. I guess WADA stands for the World Anti-Doping Agency. And they're the ones that set a lot of the rules about like what you can and can't take. Now, additionally, creatine training aid, take the creatine, have more energy, can work out a little bit harder, do one more rep, and you seem to get a little more strength and a little more muscle size out of all of that. Okay. So again, we can argue it sort of all the way around if you want on those things, right? But this is one, people would argue this is sort of could be considered a physiological type of aid. It actually affects sort of the underlying physiology of kind of what's happening. Okay, so,
Whenever you say acutely,
yes,
like what time you're gonna be talking about, it's not like.
like an hour, within an hour or two, like you take one dose of creatine today. And then, you know, an hour from now, once it's had a chance to digest and get in your system, is that creatine gonna make you better? Right? And do you guys see why that has to be a no? Because you take it, you digest it, it gets into your bloodstream. We would have to be able to then get it into the muscle tissue and stick, right, a phosphate onto it really, really quickly. And what we know from all of that is that you have to kind of chronically, it takes a couple of weeks of chronically having more of this to really be able to raise muscle levels of all of that. So creatine in your pre-workout is of no use to you, okay, on that day. If the creatine in your pre-workout is how you're basically loading your creatine, fine. But they just put creatine in pre-workout and be like, look, creatine's in here, yay, it's good. Right? That is of no actual use for you on that particular day. Okay? Just like the stuff that they give you that has nitric oxide in it or L-arginine in it that's supposed to increase blood flow to those things. That is what it does, but that is also based on the presumption that you ever have a problem getting blood flow to go someplace during exercise, which you guys shouldn't, right? If you're my parents' age and you have atherosclerosis, maybe it helps, but like, you know, anything that has L-arginine and that stuff, like, oh, you're gonna get more blood flow to your muscles are gonna grow, it's gonna be all of this total, like, that's a thing that works, right? Physiologically, it will do that, but it has no actual benefit because we never have a problem getting blood flow and getting stuff to our muscles. Joe,
So for people who are taking it now, like,
creatine.
no, the stuff.
Yeah,
stuff
like so.
Does that come down the line to biting the ass a couple of years?
I don't think so. No. I mean, do you guys know what I'm talking about? So there's a substance called L-arginine. And L-arginine is the precursor to nitric, it's a precursor for nitric oxide. You all remember when we talk about how we vasodilate blood vessels, you release nitric oxide, the smooth muscle relaxes, and you get vasodilation. If I give you L-arginine, you will make more nitric oxide, and you will potentially be able to increase, you know, like at rest, we may see a difference, but during exercise, as long as you have a normally functioning, right, nitric oxide system and those kinds of things, it doesn't really benefit you. It definitely can help in people that have atherosclerosis and have some level of impairment in their ability to vasodilate and do some things. You have high blood pressure, like there's some definite benefits, but during exercise in healthy young people, it's not that. And then the idea that, well, you take it and you're going to get more blood flow to my muscle after exercise, so more of that protein I've eaten will get there. All of that is based on the assumption that that's the limiting factor in why your muscle will or won't grow. And that's just completely untrue in that. So I don't know that it's going to come back and bite him in the ass. Like, I don't think it's fine. If you're a person that faints a lot, you might want to be careful. If you already have low blood pressure, take a bunch of L-arginine, like chronically, it might actually make you a little more, like I would not give my wife L-arginine because she'll just probably in the midst of all of that. Linda.
I was just wondering about the classifications for like soft drinks. Is that all nutritional?
They would be
Water
nutritional.
is the
Yeah, the main thing in those would be nutritional. You can argue that the caffeine is considered a pharmacological one because it's a drug, but mostly they are nutritional in that particular.
Can you argue baby?
Yes, I think you can argue all of them. They're all in some ways physiological, as well. Okay. Okay. My favorite thing in the world, protein. Ergogenic aid? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Training aid? Absolutely. If you need some more protein. Okay. I will reiterate, most of you all don't need the extra protein. Okay. Most of you don't. A few of you maybe, but most of you don't. You just have expensive urine. Okay. Just fine. Right? It's fine. So no, as long as you got good kidney function, you're good to go. But you take protein today, like how does having more amino acids, it does nothing, right, during exercise. Recovery, sure, there's evidence that it helps from a recovery standpoint. There's evidence that if you take it and you need a little bit more, you get an increase in muscle mass. That part's great, but not purely ergogenic, okay? Now a fun one. Chocolate milk. Victor says yes, Matt says no. Joey says yes. What about the rest of y'all? I feel like it's the last day I should call on the people that never talk. Like, today is your day. I used to do that like all the time, and then everyone was like, you've got to stop doing that. It freaks me out so much. So then I was like, oh, I don't want people to be, embarrassed. So what do we think? Show of hands. Chocolate milk, yay or nay? Okay, that's yays. Okay, nay. Okay. Don't know. Couple don't care. Okay, chocolate milk is an ergogenic aid, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking. What is chocolate milk made of?
Protein, fats, milk.
Milk. What is milk made of? Milk. No, the primary ingredient in milk is no, water. Water with carbs in it. What does that sound like? Gatorade, Coke, okay? Chocolate milk is ergogenic for endurance exercise in the same way that Gatorade or coffee or something that has fluid and carbs would be, okay? It would not, well, it would be my preference because it tastes better, right? One of the reasons, like, why do people think that Gatorade and these things work? It's more palatable. You want to drink more. You will voluntarily consume more of it so you can actually keep your fluid balance in a better place. I would argue chocolate milk's like the greatest thing in the world. As long as it's not too chocolate, right? So, but it has protein in it. It's been marketed as a recovery drink. Gatorade actually at one point in their iterations of things, they tried to have, they called it Prime, Perform, and Recovery. Perform was regular Gatorade. Recovery was a beverage that they made that it practically exactly mimicked the protein and carb concentrations of chocolate milk. Okay. It has the magic amount of carbs and fat and protein that elicits protein to go in, but carbs to elicit the correct insulin response after exercise, which insulin is also going to somewhat be anabolic. And so all of these things, muscle milk, all of these post-workout drinks that you have that have carbs in them, they're very, very close to the magic concentration, which we know of carbs to protein, which looks a whole lot like what chocolate milk naturally has. Okay? Naturally there. So, take it during, take it after. Okay? It's Ellis's favorite thing to do when we go to a place and she's like, can I get chocolate milk? Can I get chocolate milk? Can I get chocolate milk? And I'm like, yes, let's do it. My wife is like, no on the chocolate milk.
Sorry.
Victor, yes.
I've heard that whey protein specifically, really good.
Like tastes really good?
No, like highly effective.
More so than
Any other protein powder.
I mean, there may be, I have not looked at that evidence. The stuff that makes protein work, the thing you need in protein is you need leucine. So whatever you take, as long as leucine helps to activate mTOR. We don't know how, we don't know why, but leucine, right? It's an essential, right? You can't get it any place else, but leucine is the magic one. And I don't know off the top of my head if whey has more leucine than like casein or something else. They've done a bunch of stuff. They've looked at plant protein. They've looked at all of this. Maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but I mean, for the most part, they're all pretty similar. Okay, Joey?
concentrate of protein versus isolate?
I don't. So my guess is there's probably some like reasonable actual differences in those things, but when you look at it on the grand scale, the actual effects on your training stuff or your gains are going to be relatively small, relatively minimal. But I don't know. Okay. Before there was oh God, what are this stupid weight loss drug? that we don't know if it's gonna kill people or not. No, Ozempic, right? Ozempic, right? It's like a, what is it? It's like a GLP-1 or GL something inhibitor, some kind. Before there was that, people, you could go to Walmart, you go to GNC, you could buy these things, right? Dexatrim, diet pills, right? And then the stuff called hydroxycut. They still make hydroxycut? I should have looked. Or something like all of this, right? In the old days, when I was in high school, again, before y'all were born, you could buy the hydroxycut and it had something in it called ephedra. What is ephedra? Math. It's just math, right? Sudafed, pseudoephedrine, right? That's what it is. When you make meth, what are you doing? You're cutting the stuff. It's ephedra. It's just a precursor. They banned ephedra because it dramatically increases metabolic rate. It leads to dehydration. People would take that. They go exercise in the heat. They dehydrate. They'd have a heat stroke. It was very dangerous in those kinds of ways. So they then were like, okay, ephedra is banned. We'll go one biochemical product before or after the ephedra. And be like, ooh, look, it's not this. So I think they've taken some of that out, right? Are these things ergogenic?
What's the active ingredient?
They are ergogenic because they have caffeine in them. That's the thing, right? The primary thing in Dexatrim, or at least it used to be, it's just caffeine. You just take caffeine. There is evidence that when you take enough caffeine, that caffeine also mobilizes free fatty acids out of adipose tissue. They originally thought that was one of the ways that it improved endurance exercise, is that it lowered RAR and led to increased fat use during exercise, which spared glycogen in those things. We think now that's probably not the primary way. The caffeine acts in the central nervous system, blocks adenosine, blocks central fatigue, does a bunch of stuff there. But the primary thing is that, I mean, you take these kind of, they're just stimulants. It's just meth in that way, right? I mean, it's not exactly meth, but you guys get the point, right? They're just energy drinks. So they will, in high enough doses, and people will talk about this, caffeine will, if you're not exercising, caffeine can lead to mild dehydration. Caffeine doesn't dehydrate you during exercise. Why? Would be a great short answer question for you guys. Why does caffeine not dehydrate you during exercise?
Less blood flow to the kidney.
Yes, less blood flow to the kidneys. Caffeine tends to raise blood pressure. It mimics epinephrine or norepinephrine, raises blood pressure, raises pressure across the nephron, so you filter more. That's why when you guys are here and you're studying, you're drinking all these things, you have all this caffeine, that's why you got to pee every 45 minutes, right? It's increasing urine output. That can lead to dehydration. Is when you take them like this, when you take them in coffee and energy drink, you're taking them with fluids. And so it kind of all evens out. During exercise, it doesn't matter. You're not making that much urine anyway during exercise because all the blood flow is going elsewhere. These you can't, so you got to be careful. You got to be dangerous. Don't take diet pills. I don't know about Ozempic. We'll see on these sorts of things. Okay. All right. EPO. What do we think about EPO? Yeah. Now, you can make an argument with EPO, okay, that I get a shot of EPO today. Is it going to help me today? Maybe not today, but by like tomorrow, yeah, it's definitely like EPO is so powerful, right? Of all of the things that you could do to improve exercise performance from an aerobic standpoint, if I was the person that wanted to cheat, that's what I would do. Okay, that's what I would do. More red blood cells, more blood volume. This is the thing that works, right? You don't need more mitochondria. You don't need more capillaries. All you're doing is just being able to jam more oxygen in, right? Jam more oxygen in. And for most of you guys, that's the limiting factor in aerobic exercise right now, is your ability to get the oxygen kind of diffused across and those things. So it's really, really, really powerful. Okay, Matt.
What is EPO?
It's erythropoietin. It's a hormone that acts right in the bone marrow, stimulates the bone marrow to make red blood cells.
Oh, yeah, that'd be very effective.
Very, very effective. Okay, very effective. So yes, I don't want to say all the people in the Tour de France and all those folks are still taking EPO, but it wouldn't surprise. Okay. There are downsides clearly to this. You make more red blood cells, your blood becomes more viscous. Your blood becomes more viscous, and you lay down, right? You get blood clots at a much, much higher rate. Okay, much higher rate. People that take EPO can have hematocrit percentages that are going to clear like 53, 54, 55%, right? So I mean, your blood is basically more than half red blood cells. You guys are probably somewhere between 40 and 45% hematocrit. Your blood gets really sludgy, and when you lay down and you take a nap or you go to sleep and it slows down, you will get blood clots. There's a story. You want to read some interesting books. There's some books written before Lance admitted to being a doper. There's a couple of books written by a French journalist in France. The Tour de France is like the Super Bowl, basically. And they were like, here's why we think Lance is a doper. And there's a couple of chapters where they talk to a very famous Australian exercise physiologist. And he explains basically the physiology of life. He has to be a doper. He cannot do this without all that. But they tell some stories in the book. In the old days, when the cyclists would dope, they would give blood. And then they would give them their red blood cells back. You give blood, you wait 6 months, you get your red blood cells back. Then we centrifuge down, we give you a pint of your own red blood cells back. Okay. And then hematocrit would be so high, they would hook themselves up on an EKG to an alarm clock. And they would wake up in the middle of the night when their heart rate fell enough, the alarm clock would go off. They would wake up and ride the bike for like 5 minutes to get their heart rate up and to get the blood going, because they were so terrified they were going to have blood clots and they were going to die. They're going to have an embolism. Okay. So just be aware. They do this now, that they test people all year. Like WADA will call and you have 8 hours to get to a testing center anywhere in the world. And you have to give blood, and they track your hematocrit percentage over the course of like 18 months, right? And they know basically if you're over, I think if you're over 52, they don't think you can get over 52% under natural conditions. Go live at base camp on Mount Everest, okay? For 6 months, can't get over 52% on all of this. So they check this, and you have to be within this range. And if you don't show up for your test, you're done, right? Then you can't compete for 6 months or whatever. So, but it really, really, really works. It takes a little bit of time because you're always making red blood cells, but we need a couple of days to get it that way.
So
I would argue it's so effective, right, that we have to call it an ergogenic aid. Okay. Is it a training aid? Also, sure, because you have more, you can do more work once you've got more red blood cells. But you don't have to do anything. We just shoot you up for a couple of straight days and you're going to be better. Okay. I know the rules on what is and what isn't is we're kind of all over the place. Okay. Okay. Tums. Yay, nay. What's the active ingredient in Tums? You guys know? Calcium carbonate. It's the same. They work the same. It's just a different version of it, right? Bicarbonate. Where else is there bicarbonate by chance in your body? In your blood, you say. What does it do in your blood?
regulates
Not quite blood pressure.
carbon dioxide, acidity.
It helps acidity, right? We use it to buffer our least favorite thing for exercise. What is that? Hydrogen. If you eat enough Tums, it absolutely improves your buffering capacity within an hour or so, which means you can buffer more lactic acid. So it's good for sprinting, especially repeated sprinting, and potentially like high into like weightlifting and those. Before all of you guys run out and do this stuff, read the back of the Tums. It says take X amount for, they call it sour stomach, like, you know, you've got sort of acidity there. If you take like a triple dose, you know what it's for? Constipation. So having all of that bicarbonate, it works as a laxative. So it will work, but you may be sprinting to the restroom at the end of the day. Okay, Friday will be the last couple, and then we'll do a little review, okay? All right, thanks, guys.